Hello, welcome. This is going to be part 3 of my introduction into Sass series. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Sass features, in particular variables and nesting. Now, if you're familiar with other programming languages such as JavaScript, it is basically the same concept. So variables allow us to assign a value to a variable and allows us to reuse that value throughout our CSS. And nesting helps to reduce repeating selectors, and it also helps to improve the readability of our style sheets. So moving back into our intro.scss, so to create a variable, we use a $sign and then the variable name. Let's call it primary, and then a colon, and then we put the value that we want to assign to this variable primary. So as an example, let's set the variable green. All right, so now in order to use this primary, it's as easy as using the variable name. All right, so as an example, let's replace this green with primary. All right, save. Now if we run in our terminal, Sass, and let's run watch so that it builds every time there's a change. Intro.scss as the input and intro.css as the output. All right, and save. So you can see it's compiled intro.scss to intro.css, but if you look at the intro.css, it actually hasn't changed. And the reason for that is because the font is still being assigned the value green. Okay, so you can see that once it's compiled, it compiles it back into a normal CSS file. So it replaces this primary variable with this value green. Okay, so this is useful because it allows us to reuse the same color throughout our style sheet, right? So there we go. Instead of having to repeat the styles over and over and over again, you can just use the variable name. Okay, and it's really useful. For example, if you decide to change this green color, if you didn't have a variable, you'd have to go through each instance of where you wanted to change the color. Whereas if you have this variable, you simply change the color here, save, and now all the fonts that had been assigned the value of primary have now changed to blue by just changing the variable value up here instead of having to repeat the changes all throughout. Okay, so that's variables. So moving on to nesting, let's create a nav HTML selector. All right, and inside here, let's add a list item, and let's add an anchor, and let's add a unordered list. Okay, and save that. So inside each of these, let's add a style. So let's do font. Let's do pink. Right. A text decoration none. And in unordered list, let's do a font size. Let's do 20 pixels. Okay, and save. Right, and you can see now that's compiled on the right side. So you can see it's compiled back into regular CSS. We've got the nav li, nav a, and nav ul. All right, but here in the SCSS file, you can see that we've nested all of these inside the nav. So visually, it's similar to our HTML in terms of the visual hierarchy. So we've got the nav, and then within the nav, we've got the list item, the anchor tag, and the unordered list. All right. So it just helps with visualizing our style sheets. Now, do keep in mind that if you overdo the nesting, it becomes cumbersome and almost bad practice. So use it how you see fit. So as an example here, it makes sense to keep all the nav items styling inside the nav, right? And visually, it's easier to read than it is if you have a bunch of nav in our CSS, right? And that's nesting, all right? So that's it for this video. Hopefully that made some sense to you.